The bold and the beautiful asterisk has never shied away from chaos, but this storyline takes the tension to a whole new level. Hope Logan, once the emotional center of quiet strength and moral clarity, now finds herself in the eye of a hurricane, a storm that could rip apart families, destroy reputations, and shatter trust across the entire Forrester universe. It begins with a moment that should bring joy. Hope finds out she's pregnant. But that joy dies in her throat almost immediately because there's one unbearable truth hiding beneath the surface. She doesn't know who the father is. The timeline is blurred, and the possible fathers couldn't be more different. On one side, there's Liam Spencer, the eternal on-again, off-again love of her life, co-parent to Beth, and man with a history of heartbreak trailing behind him like smoke. On the other, Carter Walton, the man she should have never fallen for. A mistake, a secret, a consequence. A one-time moment that refuses to disappear. Hope tries to stay calm, to rationalize. She tells herself the DNA test will bring clarity, relief, a path forward. But when Thomas Forrester, still trying to be the man she can trust, still chasing redemption like a starving man, hears about the situation, he seizes the chance to prove his worth. He begs her to let him help. He promises he's changed. He says he'll support her no matter what. But before Hope can even begin to consider trusting him again, Carter explodes back into the picture, holding a devastating piece of information that changes everything. He is proof that years ago, during one of the darker chapters in Hope and Liam's saga, Thomas tampered with the DNA result. The specifics are murky, but the implication is loud and clear. Thomas interfered with medical records to manipulate a paternity outcome. Hope reels. She wants to believe Thomas has changed. But if what Carter says is true, then trusting Thomas now would be a gamble she can't afford. Meanwhile, the new DNA test brings its own complications. It's performed quietly, discreetly, but by a doctor with troubling connections. He's linked either to Liam or Sheila, depending on who you ask. There's gossip, whispers among hospital staff. Nothing solid. But it's enough to plant out in Hope's mind. She stares at the test results and feels nothing but confusion. Can she believe what she's seeing? Can she trust anyone around her? With the memory of Thomas's past interference haunting her, and the unclear loyalties of the doctor involved in the new test, Hope makes a monumental decision. She will not tell anyone who the father is. Not yet. Not until she's certain. Not until she has control over the narrative. But secrets are never safe in this world. And Hope's silence, intended to protect her unborn child from becoming a pawn in another power struggle, ignites an inferno. Carter begins to unravel. His guilt over their encounter, his longing to be more than a mistake, his desperation for truth, all of it bubbles up into fury when Hope refuses to tell him anything. He assumes the worst. He's convinced she's protecting Liam. Worse, he's sure Liam and Hope are secretly plotting to shut him out of the picture entirely. He starts pressing harder, pushing past boundaries, spiraling toward an edge he might not come back from. Liam, on the other hand, senses something is off, not just with Hope, but with the entire situation. Her reluctance to speak. Her vague answers. The way she flinches when he brings up Carter. It all adds up to one conclusion in Liam's mind. Hope is lying. And if she's lying, there must be a reason. He begins to suspect a conspiracy, one involving Carter, possibly even Thomas. He doesn't say it out loud, not at first. But his actions become more paranoid. He visits the hospital, requests access to the DNA files. He pushes Finn for answers, subtle at first, then aggressive. But Finn's hands are tied. At least, there until someone new enters the picture. A recently transferred physician at the hospital, young, sharp, observant, stumbles upon a file that doesn't match. Something about the DNA report on Hope's baby catches his attention. A misaligned code. An unexplained discrepancy. At first, he thinks it's a clerical error. But the deeper he digs, the more suspicious the entire situation becomes. The test results have been altered. Someone manipulated the data. Someone changed the name on the sample. And suddenly, what began as a quiet observation becomes the detonator to a bomb that's about to blow. The doctor brings the information to Finn, and everything spirals from there. Finn, already struggling to juggle his own challenges with Sheila, now finds himself in possession of evidence that could destroy lives. And it's not just about hope anymore. The implications reach deeper, because the altered results tie into a broader list of patients that Finn oversees, including Liam and others connected to the Spencer and Forrester families. The discovery could unravel more than a paternity test. It could expose years of tampering, lies, cover-ups. If the hospital has been a silent accomplice in personal schemes, then the fallout will be catastrophic. As the truth begins to leak in fragments, in rumors, Forrester Creations becomes a war zone. Brooke Logan confronts her worst nightmare. If the baby is Carter's, she fears Hope will be shackled to a man she doesn't truly love, a man who's already caused damage. She pleads with her daughter to come clean. But Hope, under pressure from all sides, refuses to back down. She knows once the truth is out, there's no undoing it. And if there's even a chance that the paternity result is fake, releasing it now would only reignite old traumas. On the other side, if the child is Liam's, that opens a different wound. The triangle between Hope, Liam, and Steffi could resurface in full force. Steffi, now trying to move forward with Finn and protect their children, would be pulled back into the very dynamic that tore her apart before. Brooke fears her daughter will lose everything again. And still, Hope says nothing. Meanwhile, Carter's behavior grows more unstable. He starts confronting staff at the hospital. He accuses Thomas publicly of manipulation. He demands answers from Hope with an edge that borders on threatening. He's unraveling, and everyone around him knows it. Yet part of his madness stems from truth. He was cut out. He was kept in the dark. And maybe, just maybe, the child is his. That possibility eats him alive. Liam, watching Carter implode, begins to feel vindicated. He believes this is proof that Carter isn't stable, isn't trustworthy. But his own hands are far from clean. His connection to the doctor who ran the test, however thin, is enough to raise suspicion. People start to question whether Liam had a hand in manipulating the results. Steffi demands answers from Finn. Brooke demands answers from Hope. Ridge demands to know how Thomas is involved again. And in the middle of it all, Hope clings to one instinct: protect her child. As the new doctor pushes the issue forward, Finn is left with no choice. He begins an internal investigation, pulling records, conducting interviews, working behind the scenes to confirm what he now fears, that someone tampered with Hope's DNA test. The deeper he goes, the more rot he finds. The deception wasn't an isolated incident. There are several files with similar irregularities. Patterns emerge. And suddenly, Sheila's name comes back into play. Could she be part of this web? Could her ties to the hospital, through blackmail, manipulation, or threats, have allowed her to influence tests like this before? The episode crescendos toward a breaking point. The test is invalid. The father is still unknown. Trust is broken. Carter demands legal action. Liam begins considering a custody preemptive. Brooke and Ridge find themselves clashing over how to support Hope without enabling the destruction of their family. Finn realizes he must go public. The truth can't stay buried, even if it topples everything. Hope, standing in the wreckage of all these revelations, finally breaks. She confesses she's known for weeks the test couldn't be trusted. She confesses she's been scared not just of the result, but of what the result would do to everyone. She loved Liam. She made a mistake with Carter. She didn't want to raise another child inside a battlefield. She wanted peace. And now she realizes she might never get it. And the final scene? A silent hospital room. A new test double verified, anonymously processed, confirmed beyond doubt, prints out from a locked machine. The camera pans down to one name under the father section. The audience doesn't see it, but someone does. The doctor looks up stunned. This changes everything. Cut to black. The battle has only just begun. On the July 25th episode of The Bold and the Beautiful, the drama hits a boiling point as long-simmering tensions and shocking revelations ripple across Los Angeles. From clandestine medical inquiries to surprising gestures of redemption, this episode is packed with explosive developments that will reshape the futures of several key characters. At the Spencer estate, Sheila sharp hobbles into Liam Spencer's room, leaning heavily on her crutch. Her arrival is anything but subtle, and the moment her presence collides with Steffi Forrester's, the atmosphere becomes electric with unease. Sheila, who has long been a controversial figure in the lives of the Forresters and Spencers, now walks a fine line between redemption and suspicion. As she surveys Liam's condition, her gaze lingers not just in concern but in curiosity, perhaps even desperation, for acceptance. Despite the tension, both Liam and Steffi acknowledge a debt of gratitude. On that terrifying day at the beach house, Sheila made a choice that defied every dark chapter of her past. She acted selflessly, courageously, and that act, however unexpected, cannot be ignored. In a move no one could have predicted, Steffi offers Sheila something more than words, a gift that carries emotional weight. Though not a physical token, it's a gesture that cuts deeper than any material object. Steffi offers Sheila a sliver of something she's been denied for years: hope. Hope for a future, for a place in her family, and most of all, for a connection with her son, Finn, and her grandson, Hayes Finnegan. Steffi is clear-eyed. She makes no promises. Her boundaries remain firm. But she acknowledges that Sheila's recent actions suggest a possible shift, a sign that perhaps the monster of their nightmares could be finding her humanity. Sheila clings to this moment like it's her lifeline. For someone who has burned bridge after bridge, watching even a flicker of possibility reappear in Steffi's eyes is monumental. And in that room, as gratitude mingles with tension and guarded optimism, the future of this fractured family dangles in the balance. Sheila may have taken the first real step toward redemption, but it will take far more to prove she's worthy of the road ahead. Meanwhile, across town at the hospital, Dr. John Finnegan is neck-deep in a different kind of mystery, one that's medical, but just as emotional and potentially devastating. Something isn't adding up. Liam's recovery from what was supposedly an inoperable brain tumor has defied every medical law Finn knows. The surgery that allegedly saved Liam's life simply shouldn't have worked. In fact, the more Finn scrutinizes the scans, the clearer it becomes. Nothing about this case makes sense. Seated in front of his laptop, Finn pores over the images, his face tightening with each passing minute. He re-examines every scan, every report, every scrap of data tied to Liam's diagnosis. The original images suggest a tumor, but they're vague, shadowy, inconsistent. The supposed post-op scans show total clearance, something rarely seen in even the most successful procedures. And most troubling of all, there's no surgical evidence. No scarring, no documentation of the invasive method that would have been required. The truth is beginning to crystallize in Finn's mind. He recalls the name Grace Buckingham, the specialist who pushed for the surgery, who oversaw the entire process. Grace, who was once lauded for her brilliance and discretion, now seems to be at the center of a lie so grand, it threatens the very ethics of medicine. Finn's instincts tell him this isn't just a misdiagnosis. This was a con. A fabrication. Liam never had a tumor. No miracle occurred. What they witnessed was a staged drama, orchestrated to manipulate those around him. If this revelation goes public, the consequences will be catastrophic. Not just for Grace, but for Liam, who may or may not have been complicit in this deception. Was he a pawn or a player? Finn's hands tremble slightly as he leans back in his chair. If what he suspects is true, everything changes. Trust is shattered. Reputations collapse. And relationships, especially his own with Steffi, could be tested in ways they've never endured before. Back at the Forrester mansion, another storyline unfolds with its own romantic complexities. Taylor Hayes, poised and contemplative as ever, delivers a quiet but significant blow. She won't be joining the trip to Italy. Her reasons are her own, perhaps personal, perhaps strategic. But her absence won't go unnoticed. Especially by Nick Marone, who has been navigating the choppy waters of rekindled romance with Brooke Logan. Taylor doesn't leave the conversation there. She offers Nick a piece of advice, subtle but powerful. It's a push, a suggestion that if he truly wants to win Brooke's heart, he needs to make a bold move. Not another dinner. Not another conversation. Something definitive. Something permanent. Taylor, perhaps hoping to distance herself from the ongoing triangle that has defined so much of her past, hints at the one thing that might force fate's hand, a proposal. And sure enough, Nick listens. The engagement ring soon to be in his possession is more than jewelry. It's a symbol of commitment, of a future free from the Ridgebrook cycle. Or so he hopes. Because as every longtime viewer of The Bold and the Beautiful knows, Ridge and Brooke share a bond that defies time, logic, and even common sense. They are each other's gravitational pull. So even as Nick prepares to kneel, the specter of Ridge looms in the background. The coming storm is inevitable. Brooke, torn once again between two men who have loved her in vastly different ways, must face a decision that could either shatter hearts or finally bring clarity. Will she embrace the safety and devotion Nick offers? Or will she once again be drawn back into the turbulent orbit of Ridge Forrester? The July 25th episode sets the stage for seismic shifts. Sheila's fragile redemption arc teeters on the edge. Finn inches closer to blowing open a medical conspiracy that could destroy lives. And a marriage proposal threatens to reignite old fires while extinguishing new hopes. Every character is on a knife's edge, every choice weighted with consequence. And as secrets unravel and loyalties are tested, one thing is certain, the fallout from these revelations will be anything but beautiful.
Oh.